Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Encourage Mindset. I'm your host, Ethan Vandehy. Once again, this podcast is going to be an amazing topic with an amazing guest here, Angie Lion, and we're going to be diving into another round of cultivating compassion.
Thank you for having me, Ethan. I'm just super excited to be here today. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Like you said, I'm Angie Lion, and I'm co-owner of Black River Performance Management. My husband and I own a consulting business where we get to work with people, and we believe that work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. And so we help organizations and people. We like to help them thrive in their roles, whether that's through personal development, through coaching, or culture initiatives. And so I was really excited when I heard your podcast on compassion, because I really feel and believe, both my husband and I do, that more love and compassion is needed in the world now more than ever, and also in the workplace specifically is where we aim to help people in that arena.
Yeah, no, I love that message. So what kind of got you into coaching in the first point? What was kind of maybe your story of getting into coaching?
Okay, it's a long one. I'm in the third act. I'm in the third act now. So my first, my story began actually here. Let's go all the way back. I actually grew up as a child with 8 out of 10 adverse childhood experiences. And those are called ACEs. I don't know if you're aware of those, but if you have compassion.
You can enlighten me. I'm all for it.
ACEs are something that we know adverse childhood experiences impact people in negative ways. And it's something that actually calls for a lot of compassion. And many of these people end up incarcerated because they grow up in an environment where they're constantly in trauma. Mm-hmm. And so, anyways, long story short, I got through high school, everything barely. And I did not love high school. My high school counselor told me that I wasn't smart enough to go to college. So I went to college, got a degree, and then taught college.
Oh, wow. You went the route even more after she said you wouldn't be able to do it.
For sure. It fueled me to just, and not for their purposes, but for my own, just to know that I could, because I knew that I had it. I had whatever I wanted to do. I could put my mind to it, but I just wasn't applying myself in high school because of what was going on in my own circumstances. And I didn't know how to deal with it all. And so I had a lot of anger and acted out in a lot of ways. I didn't have a very high emotional intelligence, not at all. And anger was the only real emotion that you could show, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was the cool one. You could be cool and you could get away with anger, but the rest of them made you weak. And so that's the kind of culture I grew up in. And then I ended up going on to college, and I ended up going to Boise State University, and I studied surgical technology. So I ended up working in the operating room for many years.
Wow.
And that I really enjoyed. And then, I was working in the professional field in the operating room, and I was fascinated with the human body, and I loved, digging in and getting to put my hand on somebody's heart or fix their knee, just getting to be and seeing how the body worked. It just intrigued me so much. And after years and years and years of that, I started to work in teaching surgical technology. And so at that point, when I was teaching, I was mentoring people, mentoring students, and really seeing how the dynamics in the operating room, whether I was from my work experience or from helping students being in the operating room, just seeing how the team dynamics really impacted the patient care. Mm-hmm. And so I started to see this, and I became really fascinated with human behavior, not just how the body works, but why we do what we do. So that took me back to school to get my master's in human resource development. And that means more like the human behavior side of it. It's not the like the compliance. That's definitely not me. It's more about how do we motivate employees? How do we help keeping them engaged? How do we attract talent? How do we help people reveal their talent? And how do we do the best thing we can to make the best culture possible? And so that's what I've been studying. And then I guess in 2020 is when I left higher ed. It was right at the COVID time, to do consulting full time. And I don't do as much coaching. I do some and some group coaching, but I mostly do facilitation, leadership academies, retreats, some coaching, some executive coaching. But I find that a lot of people are in transitions, and so I end up coaching them through life's transitions. But that's basically my story in a nutshell. I'm just fascinated by how we show up as humans.
Oh, that's an amazing story, and that's awesome that you learned a lot, you pushed yourself, but also it seems like you were just motivated. So kind of going through that journey and fast forward to today in 2024, we're going to dive into compassion and how you can cultivate it and push it forward. But when you cultivate compassion, it begins waking up every day, right? And most people want to know what gets them out of bed. So Angie, what gets you out of bed? What motivates you? What inspires you?
It's absolutely trying to leave the world better than I found it, and people better than I found it. That's my mission, is to, whether it's fixing their joints or helping them cross the road or helping them discover their talent. I'm here to help. I've always been a helper, a natural helper. And so whatever capacity or role I've been in, it is to help people. And I know that. And so whenever I'm doing that, I feel fulfilled and my spirit is full.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I want to expand on that more, because in the world that we've been living on, there's been chaos after chaos, school shootings, deadly situations all over the news, heartbreaking losses, tragic incidents. What can we do to kind of spread this positivity, or what can we, the listeners do to spread positivity and cultivate compassion for other people that maybe feel like they're lost or in a negative space and they just can't find a way to break those barriers?
It really starts with self. And I do say that if you don't have much self-compassion, it's really hard to give compassion to others. So if you're super hard on yourself and judgmental on yourself, and I think we as a society have gotten more judgmental than curious. And it's easier to be judgmental. We have to gain self-awareness to find out where we actually are. Are we compassionate, or do we jump straight to judgment? And what does compassion even mean? Like, to you, compassion might mean something different. So I wanted to kind of first define compassion and see.
Oh, absolutely.
See if we're on the same page. And the definition I'm taking it from is from the Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley. Compassion literally means to suffer together. Among emotion researchers, it's defined as the feeling that arises when you're confronted with another's suffering and you feel motivated to relieve that suffering. And so I think for me, that really resonates. So when I see somebody, even if it's in an image of a starving kid, right? Like, if I see something, I'm stimulated by that and I think I want to help. And so recognizing when you go to judgment versus being compassionate, because we have become conditioned to just, oh, they didn't work, they don't deserve it, right? We've just turned into self-righteous, to a little bit to this self-righteous space where we have got to be able to check ourselves and check our egos and ask and stop. I think there's a pause when we have a moment to just ask ourselves, what would the best version of me do in this situation?
Absolutely.
Or what would it take? Stopping and asking yourself a couple questions. What would it take for me to act in this way? What would it take for me to be like this? We know in our society, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the statistics, but like 20 to 30% of Americans are depressed. And then Vivek Murthy has his podcast with Rich Roll that says one out of every 2 Americans is suffering from loneliness. Rates are higher in younger people. It impacts our mental health, and it increases our inflammatory response, all these disease things. It's worse on our health than smoking. Workplace suicides are on the rise. Like, we are going through a lot of turmoil right now and a lot of pain. And actually, there was one other thing that I wanted to share today, which was let's see. Okay. When these people are suffering, they are emotionally hijacked, right? They've got depression. They're suffering from loneliness. The age group between 22 and 55, the rate of deaths has went up. They're called deaths of despair, and that has increased at a rate we've never seen before. And so we know that you're going to work with these people. They're going to be in your lives. They're going to be in your families, and it could be us at some point, because our mental health can all take you could be on the top of Maslow's hierarchy one day, self-actualizing, and the next day you could lose your job and be searching for food and shelter, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so being realistic about the fact that seeing in other people's humanity, that any of this could happen to us, the things that we're seeing. And when people are angry, raging, acting out, it really says a lot about their hurting. And we have to look at them through the eyes of compassion versus the eyes of judgment and condemnation and everything, because, it's not helping. And it's definitely a lonely place to be up on the high horse.
Yeah, no, and you just literally told us everything that is going on with the world that is facing a ton of turmoil, as you said, and a lot of struggles have been happening. I mean, I've had friends, I'm sure you've had friends, family members, everybody's seemed like they've experienced something.
Mm-hmm.
I view myself as a pretty positive person. A couple months ago, I lost my job. It's just the reality of the world, and that's where we need to take what I call 1% every better, small steps forward. And when you do these small steps forward, they'll create these bigger leaps.
I love the 1%.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't have to be something crazy big. It doesn't have to be something life altering. But for example, if you're someone that lost their job, right? What's 1% thing that you can do? Well, it'd be create that resume. It doesn't have to be apply to 30 jobs or apply to 20 jobs. It's step one, create the resume. So just creating simpler tasks and not shooting for the home run every time. I feel like a ton of people my age specifically, they want the world's greatest job out of college. And if they don't get it, they're upset, frustrated. They compete all the time. Hey, John, what do you have for your salary? Well, I'm making 65,000. Well, I'm only at 50. Why am I not the same as John? So it's very competitive and toxic in this environment that we choose to do. Like every action we have is a choice. And that's the thing about cultivating compassion. It's a choice to do this. And that's why me and you are on this tonight, because we are preaching that people need to do this and make it part of like their everyday habits and routines. So I'm excited to learn more about why you think like this is a topic all ages should be learning more about.
Well, absolutely. And one thing we haven't talked about, you just mentioned all that comes from envy. And envy is something, it's social media is designed for that. And it's comparison is the thief of joy. And so when you're all spun out on comparing yourself with others, it actually takes your happiness away. It's one of the 7 deadly sins that isn't even fun. And we still do it, right? Envy is not going to help you be able to be compassionate for anybody, because you're always comparing, wishing you had more, not wanting other people to have those nice things or you to have it. So noticing when you're having envy and not being mad at yourself about it, but just being like, oh, I'm envious. I'm going to get off of this for a while. Maybe I'm going to take a social media sabbatical for a while, or I'm going to unfollow, or I'm just going to start doing things that will bring me more joy. And maybe that is going to the store and not taking your phone and just talking to somebody at the grocery store. You said little things. I think about that, putting your phone away and literally looking someone in the eyes and wishing them a good day, smiling at them. We need more of this contact, face-to-face, eye contact, looking at people, caring and concern for people.
Yeah, and the remote jobs is hurting that once again. And it's like that's creating loneliness right there. People just working at home. So once again, people are facing struggles in that. and that alters their personal life as well, especially if their personal life they don't see a ton of people outside of, a lot of people kind of value work as a way to meet people and see people. So if
Right.
you're not getting it there, you might not be getting it in your personal life. So
Mhm.
that's sometimes where it's like, man, I feel like if you could just go to a store, like you said, or go to the mall or whatever it is, and even if you're by yourself, just think and relax and be creative. And you see all these kids, I don't know if you've seen this, but in stores or in church or whatever it is, they all have iPads and they're like 2 years old. And it's like, what? What's going
Mhm.
on here? Like that kid shouldn't be having an iPad at 2 or
Yeah.
1, half a month. Like, come on, it's just ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah. So it takes everybody being more self-aware and of that awareness of, am I a compassionate person? And what did I show compassion today? Setting an intention of being compassionate, and also reviewing what you value, doing a values review and figuring out, if you value being kind and being compassionate, are you showing up? Do you have calendar reminders? You could set a reminder on your phone to do that, or you could have a phone reminder, a calendar reminder. There's different little triggers that could help you do that 1% and check in with yourself at the end of the day. On a
That's,
scale of 1 to 10, how did I do on my compassion?
yeah, and
And
once again, I think this is where it factors into what you say, right? The roadmap to a life you love. I think this leads to that. Angie, is there anything else that really relates to, this topic that can also help us get to the life we want to love? I know that's what you preach a ton, so I want to make sure we emphasize that.
it's really taking time to develop yourself. And I mean internally. We live in a society where we're super focused on external things, how we look, what we have, how much money, the title, and especially when we're younger. That is kind of the age where we're trying to get it all figured out, right? The first act in life, right? Up to your like 20s, your 30s, then you start to realize what really matters, and you learn that the job, the house, and all of these things actually don't bring you happiness. The happiness comes from working on the inner self and learning about yourself. If you are struggling to be compassionate, that's a signal that you need to work on yourself and maybe get some therapy, talk to a friend, get a coach, work through this. Everybody struggles with getting to know themselves, right? And sometimes it does take taking your phone away and really getting quiet, like you said, and really starting to have some solitude. And solitude's different than loneliness. Solitude is a choice where we want to be on our own so we can really reflect and have some downtime and get away from the noise, maybe unplug from electronics for a while. That's another thing that you could do. Figure out when you could have some solitude and really journal or figure out what's going on. But I would say one of the biggest, best habits that you could create is to pause and ask yourself a question. Let's just say, for example, you saw a homeless person on the side of the street. You could choose to ignore them, or you could choose to give them some money. You could choose to create some little bags that have a bottle of water and some gift cards to McDonald's and some toiletries that you have in your car. You could be intentional about what it is, or you could be the person at work that that somebody is really kind of a crunchy person. You know what I mean? Like they're really crunchy, and it's hard for you. You be nice to them, and they're always crunchy. But the thing is that person needs the most compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who act out often the most are loneliest, are angry inside, are feeling, and hurt people are the ones who generally put hurt out there. And sometimes they just need some compassion. And you could be the one that could make them feel, you could be the one that actually keeps them from suicide, or you could be the one that makes them show up to work every single day, because even though they're not nice to you, you don't get anything out of it. You enjoy being kind to that person.
Yeah.
Asking them how they are, seeing if you could help relieve asking if you could take a task from them, just trying to implement it. Like I said, little things, the grocery store, going to the mail, to the post office, to the bank, smile at the old person. Elderly people are really alone, and they really, when they're retired and they're sitting in their homes, they're looking forward to this trip to the grocery store or the bank. They want to make a connection, and they don't want to be next to people who are staring at their phone in line and can't take a minute to say hello or how are you.
Yeah, no, I would 100% validate that. So I think we both agree that compassion is one of the keys to success in life, to create a life you most likely want to have. What else do you think is a key to success that a lot of people maybe don't know fully the concept or don't fully have awareness of? What do you think is, another key to success that some of the listeners should implement?
I think spending some time on growing your emotional intelligence, and that means understanding yourself and others, your relationship management. So whether you read some books on it, take some classes, listen to some podcasts, start to understand and expand your vocabulary on your emotions, understand what you're feeling. Because when you snap at people or react to stimuli in your environment, or you're hijacked, you get emotionally hijacked, you aren't even aware of it oftentimes. And most people that I work with don't even know that they're unaware. And actually, statistically, only 15% of people across all industries are actually self-aware. That means there's a lot of work to do. I mean, this includes higher ed, engineers. This work is from Tasha Urich's research in her book, Insight. So I would say really focus on your social emotional skills and starting to learn, because the more we have technology and social media, we need human skills and pro-social skills where we can learn to get out into nature. We can be with somebody when they're dying. We can be there and observe amazing things that humans do, and really start to connect with each other and see each other as human beings and not human doings.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, Angie. Is there anything else you want to share on today's episode of Encourage Mindset? Maybe a podcast you recommend, a book you recommend, or something, you've
Yes.
been a personal development coach and all these other amazing things for quite some time. So anything else powerful or inspirational you've learned that you want to share?
So I would say the Greater Good Science Center at Berkeley, Dacher Keltner's research, I would look at his work. I would look at Arthur Brooks's work. He recently wrote a book with Oprah, Build the Life You Want. It is incredible. Dacher Keltner's book, Awe, How Awe Can Transform Your Life. Both of those researchers have, the science behind it, and it's super helpful to know, how the brain works, and they've researched people over the longest periods of time and found what creates a meaningful life. And knowing that, and knowing years and years of research, help us to make our decisions and to look forward into, what can I do? If all these other people did this and this is what brought them happiness, what would make me different, right? So you still get to pick your own path, but knowing that chasing external things and striving and staying busy and doing all this stuff is burning people out, and we're not being kind to one another.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your views of compassion and also some of your expertise and knowledge just in personal development and, most importantly, life development. So thank you for your words and appreciation to my podcast. And most importantly, I appreciate you for being on. So thank you so much.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And thank you to your listeners for listening to this and for spreading, just creating a ripple effect of goodness in the world. I think we could all use a lot more positivity in our worlds. The news is, 80% negative. And social media has a lot of it on there too. So I really commend you for putting good into the world. And if you could be intentional with starting your day like this, it's going to make you a more compassionate person just by lifting your own spirit and filling your own cup so that you can pour into others.